Aloha, Steve Tobis here, and I am super stoked on this video because we are going to talk about the hottest news product to hit the water sports industry, the new BRM Parawing. Now, I've only taken this out for one downwind session, so I'm just going to share some of my initial thoughts, try to answer some of the most common questions that I've got about this all new product. So full disclaimer, I'm not sponsored by BRM. They didn't ask me to make this video. I paid full retail price for it. Yeah, I'm just a knucklehead with a GoPro and a credit card. Take this information as you will. These are just my personal thoughts and experience with the wing. I've only taken it out once. We did one downwind run in Kihei on the south shore of Maui, and that's it. So some of this stuff I'm just kind of guessing and assuming based off of that first feedback. Other things, you know, we've actually tried and tested. Let's get into it. In your bag, you have three things. There's this smaller stuff sack. It's probably, 14 inches by 7 or 8 inches or so. This is what everything comes packed in. This is super small. That's pretty sick. This thing packs down really tiny, really light. This is great for people who travel a lot. The other bag that you get is this little bit larger mesh vented duffel. This is going to be my main storage option for this wing. Part of the sport, the wing's in the water, the wing gets wet. This gives you a great bag to stuff everything into after your session, where it can have some breathability and drying out. I still think that after you ride, you should hang it up and let everything fully dry out before putting it in. The other cool thing about this is it's big enough and the Parawings are small enough, you could pack an entire quiver from the smallest size all the way up to the biggest in one little duffel. So for guys who travel or people who want to have a bunch of different sizes with them at all times, this is an awesome feature that everything fits in this just one little handheld duffel bag. And then finally, we have the BRM Belt. This is an ancillary option. It's not required to sail the Maliko wing. This is a really nice bit of functionality. It's basically a webbing belt with a neoprene pouch on it. It has like a semi-rigid plastic insert here, and this webbing loops all the way around. So when it's on your waist, if you choose to ride with a harness hook, you actually get a little bit of support here. You can feel that it's not totally collapsing on you, and it doesn't feel just like you have this little thin piece of webbing that you're loading against. So for people who choose to add a harness hook here and ride with it, this wide neoprene spread actually feels pretty good on the small of your back. There's also this pretty decent sized stuff area. This is where I was putting the wing. Once I would grab it and wind it all up, I just stuff everything in here. Actually, I ended up using these loops that, Greg has built for the bar. I ended up using them for my GoPro camera. Kind of a non-advertised function, but it worked great. It was nice to have. And then you have these little bungees here that you can put over the top to really lock everything in. Now, when I was riding, I never had the wing fall out. I was kind of just ignoring these bungees. When I was up, the wing never fell out, but when I fell a couple times, the wing did pop out during my crash. If you are going on extended downwind runs, or you're not doing a lot of stowing and deploying, probably it's best to stow your wing in here and then throw the bungee over the top just to kind of secure it a little bit. I think like for wave riding, I probably will never use this bungee. Just stowing in this pocket and kind of having the quick in and out is the ticket. And finally, the wing. This is it. It's super small, super lightweight, really easy to handle and manage. So just sharing a couple of the tips that really helped us through those first initial learning stages. The handle has two ends to it. One of them has a green loop on it. This is what's up. The wing is gonna sail like this. The other one is this bridle line in the middle. This thing can slide. On the bar, there's this little white mark and kind of a notch, a dimple. So it happens sometimes when you go to collapse the wing, you kind of backline stall, slide your hand all the way up. And as you're wrapping this up and stuffing it in your pouch, this little Velcro part here can slide. And then when you go to redeploy, now the bridle isn't properly tensioned. One of the great tips that we got was if you see this line, adjust this guy right back to cover it, and now your bridle's set up to where it wants to be. So as far as riding goes, this is a new product. It's a very new discipline. We're just in the first stages of this as a sport. Enjoy the learning process. There was about 5 or 6 of us that went out yesterday on a downwind run. We had really no idea what we were doing, and that was half the fun. Embrace the learning adventure. Embrace your time trying to figure it out. I think that going through the learning process and figuring out how to do everything is just a ton of fun. You're trying to figure out how do I relaunch this thing? How do I get it in the air? How do I manage it? And you just make these little steps, and it just feels so good and so cool to kind of develop your own technique and figure out how to do it. Through the half dozen of us that went, we were getting up different ways, we were stowing different ways, and it was cool at the bottom to kind of hooey and talk about how did this work, how did that work. And we found that, just between a small group of us going, we actually learned a lot about how to manage the equipment, manage the sail, how to untangle, how to untwist, how to manage everything in an efficient way. I'm really excited to go again because I feel like we learned so much in our first session, and we're only scratching the surface as far as as efficiency and performance. So one of the most common questions I've been asked about this is, does it tangle? Because it looks like it'll just be a tangly mess all the time. There's so many bridle lines and coming down to this handle. It looks like it turned into a nightmare really quick. I was honestly shocked at how resistant this is to tangling. When I first got this thing, we threw it up on the beach and I immediately let go of it. I just wanted to see how far will it go? How far will it fly on its own? Will it fly away and I just lost my wing? Will it stick to the water? Is it gonna get tangled? Like, I was trying to make a mess out of this wing, and I think probably the worst tangle I had took me maybe 5 minutes at most to sort out and get undone. And I was like way out in the middle, 30-mile-an-hour wind, crashing bumps, and you know, it only took me about 5 or so minutes. Surprisingly, the wing kind of wants to sort itself out. It doesn't want to tangle, which is really cool. Now, it's not impossible, right? This thing can turn into a rat's nest. I was surprised at just how resistant it is to it. I was doing a bunch of dumb stuff with it, stuff that I would never intentionally do, trying to make a mess, and it was actually kind of hard to do. So that was a really neat feature. Sorting it out was pretty easy. Most of the time it was just passing a handlebar through a couple lines. The wing itself, when it starts to lift, it's really obvious when the canopy's not properly supported. The wing will collapse, you'll get stalls, it doesn't want to fly right. So you can figure out pretty quickly and easily that I have a line that's twisted, and seeing where it's twisted at isn't that hard to figure out. Kind of the million-dollar question here is, does this go upwind? The short answer is absolutely. When you're properly powered, this thing points just as steep and just as fast as any traditional inflatable wing. So yesterday the wind was, you know, 20 to 30, super lit. When I was on the 2.9, I was able to point upwind perfectly. When I rode the 4, I had a little bit harder time leaning against it and pushing the sail to the front of the window. I was just way overpowered. I think if I maybe had a smaller foil or a harness hook, that could have changed it. Riding unhooked, just holding on to it, getting drug around, the 2.9 felt perfect, and I absolutely could point upwind. I did a toe side jibe, I was coming back in, making upwind progress both ways. So for people who like to ride upwind and then deflate their wing and cruise downwind, this is perfect because you get all the benefits of that discipline without the risk of going down. Because if you deflate and you go down and you don't have a pump or a way to reinflate, you're swimming, and that's really unfun. So having this just tucked away in your belt where you can throw it back up, you can redeploy, power yourself up, get another bump is really a cool feature. As far as sizing goes, I think the best way to size this is identical to whatever you would ride for a traditional inflatable wing. We were riding on 2.9s and 4-meter wings for our downwind run, and the wind was blowing 20 to 30 mile an hour. It was super windy. The 2.9 felt great. I felt really controlled. I could point upwind. It felt just like everything I would want to do on a normal inflatable wing. The 4-meter felt like a lot. I was very overpowered, and the wing just didn't feel like it performed as well when it was super overpowered. So riding in optimal wind ranges, I think, is ideal for these. So I think if you're trying to figure out what size Maliko Parawing to get, buy whatever you normally ride for whatever discipline you're trying to do. As far as board sizing, we had a whole range of boards. We had people on, you know, mid 5-foot mid-length boards all the way up to 9-foot plus downwind race boards. And it seems like the people that had the most success were actually on smaller boards, something in that mid-length size. And the people that were on the longer downwind boards actually struggled a little bit more. One of the features, I think, of a smaller board that kind of pairs well with the Parawing is when you launch the wing, the takeoff can be a little bit aggressive, where you're just kind of sending it up and it just powers up and boom, you're in the power. With the smaller board, when you're sitting on it or on your knees, you can kind of sink the tail a little bit and resist against that pull. So it just felt a little more controlled and easier to manage. Part of that too, you know, a lot of us were riding pretty overpowered, so it's not necessarily an optimal test situation. For our conditions and what we were doing, it seemed like when we were riding a little bit smaller boards, it felt better. So I was riding my 7.7 stand-up foil board. I ended up trading halfway through the run for an 8.10 downwind race board. I liked the feeling of my 7.7 sup better. It's a shorter board. It was a little easier to control. I just had a little bit less going on. Having the longer board, I didn't need that length to be efficient in the water. The Parawing was doing so much work and just pulling me so fast through the water. I didn't need that long water line from the race board. This is so sick. Look, I'm going upwind. The wing will push to the front of the window and you can totally ride upwind. I can point just as steep or shallow as I could on the normal, like, inflatable hand wing. Riding toe side, attack, and like, I'm edging upwind. I'm edging against the sail. Oh, fuck! No! Come on! So yeah, I gotta figure out a little stability. operator issue. Oh, there we go. Okay, so you definitely can deploy and stow this. It takes a little figuring out. There's a little bit of a technique to get it to kind of stow and deploy the right way up. But once you figure it out, it's not too bad. Really, this is sick. Like, in the waves, this is gonna be awesome. If you're just learning to downwind, or you wanna wade to downwind without paddling, when you stow this away, you're just riding the boat, exactly like you are on a paddle, just without paddling. So it's pretty sick. This is very cool. Highly recommend. Super fun. All right, so I just stowed the wing in my waist belt here, got it all adjusted, and look, now we're downwinding with no paddle, no sail, we're just cruising. This is so cool. This is absolutely unreal. It's like, I have this feeling that I'm prone foiling this wave, but we're gonna go for about 10 miles. So as long as I don't fall, we're just ripping turns, and I got my wings stashed right in the small of my back for if I need it, because we're probably gonna fall. Just like a prone run with like no risk. We're like a couple miles offshore here in the middle of the ocean. And if I go down, I'm just gonna throw my wing back out and get right back up. And then you stow it away. And now you're just ripping like a prone session. Like, this is so cool. It's such a novel feeling not having a paddle in my hand. It's something that like is kind of reserved for pretty elite riders. So yeah, this is really cool. It just kind of opens up a new element for downwinding and like cruising and surfing, not having to have a paddle. It's pretty sick.
If you have any other questions or anything that I didn't address, leave a comment down below. I'll get back to all of you. And I really hope to see you guys on the water. Aloha.